Innovation, or rural innovation, as I like to call it, is a particular passion of mine. When we look at innovation, and really we're talking about jobs, and we're talking about employment, and we're talking about entrepreneurship. It's a passion that I developed a few years back after running Bay of Quinte Tourism and Bay of Quinte Living for a while. Really what it came down to was we were having a hard time, and we probably are still having a hard time, keeping our youth in the region and bringing youth and new Canadians here to the region. It was a problem we found with Bay of Quinte Living, and certainly it was something that resonated with me being a father and having friends who had children. Could we keep our children here in the region when they become older? Do they have the jobs available, the employment opportunities? Can they have a better life here in Bay of Quinte? I created a group called Quintivation, and Quintivation was about looking outside of what we already have here, which is a strong tourism base and manufacturing. And we have a little bit of government, military, a lot of different types of jobs. But, what we found was, were we really looking at the future jobs, the jobs that grow tech or agri-tech or agriculture itself, the jobs that may require maybe infusion of some tech and software? And what are the jobs of the future going to be? Quinnovation was a passion project. We had entrepreneurs around a table making decisions about entrepreneurs. We would do coffee mornings and drink nights. And we normally asked entrepreneurs one simple question: what was your biggest challenge being in Bay of Quinte in rural Canada? And what was amazing about that project is we discovered a couple dozen tech companies, different entrepreneurs of all groups, some entrepreneurs who weren't working and some that were. A lot that had different stories of why they picked Bay of Quinte region and why they loved rural Canada itself. And in 2018, we hosted Canada's first Rural Innovation Summit here in Belleville. And it was an incredible assortment and creation of different groups and individuals who had so many great conversations on why we can create employment, better paychecks, and jobs here in the Bay of Quinte region. So we're going to get into this today in this podcast. What is rural innovation and why is it important? What challenges do we face here in rural Canada that we don't have in the rest of Canada? Who are working here on innovation? And what are they doing? Do we have a tech cluster here in this region? And what are some of the other jobs that are being developed? And how is Loyalist College and other institutions helping pave the way for innovators here in this region? All of those questions on innovation, rural Canada, and the future of jobs and paychecks here in this region are all going to be discussed and developed here on In the House.
Mr. Speaker, it's my pleasure to rise as the first time as Conservative MP for the Bay of Quinte.
This is the In the House podcast with your voice in the House of Commons, Bay of Quinte MP Ryan Williams.
When we talk about jobs in rural Canada, it's no simple thing. Sometimes it used to be that you hung a shingle up, you decided to have a great idea for a business, and you simply just opened the doors. There are old downtowns of yesteryear, the old downtowns that used to be the center of commerce. Just meant that someone opened a store, they put a sign out front, they sold a product, and away they went. In the new economy, the global economy, it's much more complicated than that. You have to really ensure you have a good product that competes well, not only in one region, but within the world. You have to ensure you have a good marketing and good brand alongside that, because you're going to have a lot of different competition. You have to ensure when you're looking at that you have, in this day and age, the ability to source that through our supply chain shortages, the ability to offer something that's a little different and unique. And thirdly, you have to be able to finance that, either come up with a loan or be able to also have the ability to generate cash flow over a certain period of time. The new terms you hear when it comes to business is venture capitalists. So people who invest in your business and take a little part of that or a percentage of your business. There's certainly different and harder ways to get loans. They're not always as easy. And at the end of the day, you still have to work hard to be able to get your own work into a certain project or a business, but also the ability to attract talent and keep talent. And we're finding that to be some of the hardest barriers to business right now, especially in rural Canada. But let's just go back to the beginning. Let's talk about rural innovation and why it's important. Rural innovation, of course, talks about innovation in rural areas. And what is rural and what is urban? I think that's really important to talk about. In Canada, we have about 94 urban municipalities. And urban, in my definition, is 100,000 or more people. So you'd think of areas like Toronto and Calgary and Halifax, Montreal, Vancouver, Victoria, etc. Of course, the closest areas to us are Kingston and Toronto. But rural represents something different. In Canada, we have 3,700 rural municipalities, meaning those municipalities that are under 100,000. And if you look at cities of an average size of rural, well, of those cities under 18,000, there is currently over 70% of those rural cities under 18. So rural does signify different challenges. It does also signify a certain and a momentous part of Canada that we have to represent when we're talking about rural. So the challenges, of course, are drawing talent, having enough people who want to participate in the workforce, ensuring that we have the right amount of resources to start businesses and keep them going. And of course, with all of that, it's also people. Do we have enough people to buy products and get that product into market? And certainly there's a lot of different challenges with that. My first guest today is Mary Doyle. And Mary Doyle and I were involved with starting the first Quinnovation, Quinnovation itself 10 years ago. And Mary really knew what rural represented and what rural needed. And it was really great to work with Mary on what rural needed when it came to developing Quinnovation. So Mary, thanks for joining me in the show. We're going to start today with what will rural Canada look like and what does it need for the next decade?
I don't know. No one does because there is no data about the future. I know it's very disappointing to hear someone who calls herself a futurist say that. But what I can tell you is that there are some signals today that point to an increased understanding and appreciation of nature. Doctors in BC, for example, are giving out park passes as prescriptions, and that's considered a signal of change. Nature wellness is growing as an industry, and since 2021, there have been over 53,000 research articles on nature and happiness. Last year, McKinsey released a report that estimated wellness to be a $1.3 trillion industry worldwide. Now that's a big opportunity for rural development, and there are lots of opportunities like that. What will rural Canada need in the next decade? I guess that depends on what kind of future we want to live in. If we don't want it to be decided by other people, then we need to participate. We want to live in our future, the future that we help to make.
Mary, your job lately has been working as a futurist. And a futurist, as I understand it, is looking at strategies and predicting the future. Please tell us a little bit more about that work that you're doing.
I took a training sabbatical during the last 2 years, and I am now a certified strategic foresight practitioner. I introduce futures thinking to communities and organizations and businesses. As a futurist, I'll start by telling you what I don't do. I don't have a crystal ball, and I don't try to predict the future, not with any accuracy. But we can see clues about possible futures, things that are happening today, new technologies, new products and services, news stories, government regulations that show something is changing and it's pointing us in a new direction. And we call these signals of change. When we see enough signals of change in one area, we can start to talk about where they might be leading and what that possible future might look like.
Mary, in your opinion, what does rural need to best survive and to thrive over the next 10 years?
That starts with understanding what is possible. Maybe it's not a future that we want to happen, but is it possible? And what kind of an impact would that have on our lives? When we do this enough, we start to build resilience. And resilience is a really key component to talking about the future. We have a saying that it's better to be surprised by a scenario than blindsided by reality. There was a study published 2 years ago, and it looked at long-term business and economic impacts of futures thinking. The study followed 100 companies over a 7-year period. The companies ranged from brand new startups to established Fortune 500 companies. And the researchers analyzed how many futures thinking practices were used regularly by companies. Then they followed them for 7 years, and here's what they discovered. Futures thinking companies outperform the average company with 33% more profits and 200% more growth. Talk about innovation and scale. That's why cities and governments and large organizations and large businesses are actually hiring full-time futurists, and they're building their own internal futures thinking teams. Even our federal government has a whole strategic foresight division. My mission is to bring strategic foresight and futures thinking to small communities and small businesses because we're at a significant disadvantage if we're not looking 10 years out. The future is not something that just happens to us. The future is something that we make.
So we know a little bit about what rural needs. We can understand that in order to grow businesses and paychecks, we need to look at rural a little differently than we look at urban. And when we do that, we then have to find the pieces that are missing, ensure that as a government, we put the resources into them, and we accelerate those businesses to grow and to prosper and ensure we have the people that are going to go there. In our next segment, we're going to talk about people and how people are so important and a big piece to the rural innovation puzzle. Employment is just incredibly important in all times to business, but really specifically to rural Canada. You know, when we talk about our youth, and I talked about it earlier, the statistic that was really alarming when we looked at creating Quinnovation was that 80% of our youth are leaving rural areas to go to urban centers. And why they leave is because that's where the jobs are. So when it comes to companies creating positions and needing employment, rural Canada just has a harder time at drawing employment than most other areas. Now in Canada right now, we're short 1 million jobs. So that is already a component either of COVID or just lack of growth of skilled labor itself. And perhaps in some ways, maybe just a population that is finding retirement a little quicker. But people are imperative to the success of business and rural innovation here in the Bay Quinte region. We're talking to Dean Young, who is the general manager of Tacoma Auto Systems here in Belleville. Thanks for joining us, Dean. Dean, please let us know how important people are to your business.
Our associates are what make Auto Systems one of the best lighting manufacturing companies in the world and are ultimately our number one asset. Our workforce is diverse and our culture is unique in that we have a sense of family pride, ownership, and inclusion. Our team is incredibly committed, dedicated, hardworking, and these attributes are what set us apart from many other organizations. Like many other companies, we're challenged with labor constraints and shortages. However, this has driven our team to focus more on the elimination of waste through Kaizen events and automation.
Dean, you also have a global company, meaning you're one piece of the global economy puzzle. When you make that product here in Belleville, in the Bay Quinte region, how is that contributing to the global economy?
Very interesting question, and one that I would have provided a different response if asked prior to the pandemic. Prior to the pandemic, being outside of major centers was viewed as a disadvantage with attraction of skill sets, travel, and etc. The past 24 months have forced a new way of operating with virtual networks, so I view the playing field more level now. We've all adapted to the virtual world that allows us to no longer rely on having to get on a plane or in a car to address issues face-to-face. This has saved time, avoided unnecessary costs, improved productivity, and more importantly, reduced the safety or risks that come with traveling. Magna has a clear and defined vision of advancing mobility for everyone and everything, and I firmly believe that this is what will take us to new growth and profit levels in the future.
So the biggest challenge we have is hiring people right now. And when it comes to the federal government, we certainly have to look at ways that we're finding programs that help people train into a better paycheck. And we certainly have to look at ways in which we're helping jobs that can't be filled or aren't being filled be filled by new Canadians coming into Canada. You know, one of the biggest challenges we have when it comes to people is although we are bringing over 460,000 new Canadians into Canada this year, just under 55,000 are skilled trades or skilled labor, meaning that they are able to fill a position that we need filled. And we certainly have to look at how we're training and educating our own Canadians here in Canada into jobs that are available, but also ensuring we have the training available for Canadians who want to upskill or make a better paycheck. I think that's extremely important and something we'll be looking at in opposition over the next few years. When you think of innovation, the first word that may come to mind is technology. Certainly, when we look at the last 50 years and look at how our lives have changed of humans, and the fact that one of my favorite analogies is when you take our cell phones and then you look at all the things that cell phones replaced, and you have the picture of the gentleman standing with headphones on his head with a Walkman and a ghetto blaster and a record player and a typewriter and a computer. All the things that we can also do in one phone right now. Even you might be listening to this podcast on your phone. It's quite incredible how technology has changed our lives. And when we look at rural Canada, then we know that tech is certainly in certain other places of Canada like Kitchener and in Toronto and in Ottawa and in Victoria and now in Calgary, but is tech in rural Canada. And what was really fascinating in being involved with Quinnovation was seeing tech in a lot of different places in the Quinte region. And what was really great about that is as we got to learn about these companies and what they were doing, there was actually a Quinte Tech Association that developed from that. I'm happy to have Delilah Chartrand here with me today, part of the Quinte Tech Association. Delilah, tell us how that association formed and what you've been up to.
The formation of the Tech Association actually goes back to 2017. Nancy Stone Lake, an industrial technology advisor for the National Research Council of Canada, she actually started holding some meetings that were focusing on high-tech entrepreneurs and gathered many different people and companies together to discuss issues that each were dealing with. These meetings have contributed to the convergence of the ideas that brought us to where we are today. In that same year, Chris King of the Quinte Economic Development Commission talked about the idea of a tech sector association. He spoke succinctly about the value of a group like this coming together, as well as the potential for substance due to the overwhelming number of people and companies involved in the tech sector in our area. QEDC is a valued partner of the Tech Association and manages communications to our members, as well as being available for steering committee meetings. Quinnovation, was a key supporter and also saw the vision and significance of what starting an association like this could mean. So a volunteer-based committee came together and started working on guiding this association to start out on a path of success. We've had key players remain on the steering committee and allowed the committee to also be fluid for the inclusion of anyone with a stake in the field wanting to take part. We wanted to make sure that anyone involved in the tech sector is included. So this isn't simply about business owners or people in specific roles. This is about being inclusive to also recognize that teachers and students, for example, all fit in this field. Technology is everywhere we go and isn't only relative to software coding, IT, or network support, which are the typical things we think of as the tech field, but can also include a diverse group that also belongs to manufacturing, automotive, medical, and of course the list goes on. Within the framework of the principles are trust, integrity, leadership, and communication. We have an overwhelming number of organizations and people in this sector. We don't have to live in a large metropolitan area. We've got the numbers right here. So it made sense to continue on with what we were doing. We have Loyalist College right on our doorstep. We've had multiple meetings with different people and groups from the college over the past few years, as they are a big advocate of what this organization can do and become relative to sector needs from an education perspective. Our association is modeled after the Quinte Manufacturers Association, as it's a proven model. The Tech Association just hit its 3-year anniversary on February 21st. That was the date of our first meetup 3 years ago, as it took time to grow out of the conversations and meetings which actually began in 2017. In March of 2019, the charter, the mission, the underlying code of the association were created, as well as the website, quintech.org, and since then we've just kept moving forward. And now we have 96 companies registered as members. We continued on with events throughout 2019, and with COVID controlling the situation, we then held two online events in 2020 and 2 more in 2021. We have yet to schedule one for this year, but it's being developed to get members engaged again, with mandates having been lifted and being able to meet face-to-face.
Lila, what are the biggest challenges that your association and your businesses face right now?
One of the biggest challenges being faced by the tech sector in the Quinte region is finding skilled employees. I would like to say that Loyalist College has been and is working diligently on their program availability, both post-secondary and post-grad, which has been an immense help for the tech companies in our community. The thing about when positions that get posted for careers in our area, many respondents are from other countries. There are some hurdles that are relative to immigration because it's not an easy undertaking. It's become easier and more flexible over the past few years, but when you're managing through this process for the first time, it can seem overwhelming. Also, a lot of our local tech companies are SMEs, and they may not have the resources to put into managing this process. Having said that, even if or when companies move through that hurdle and find a qualified candidate, we don't have affordable housing in our area, not to mention limited rental opportunities. This is key to getting newcomers to our area, whether from another area in Ontario or from out of country, to fill roles within our companies. This isn't new information, and it impacts our community in so many ways, including filling positions in the tech sector. Another challenge specifically is cybersecurity. Tech businesses have to pivot their business model under circumstances, and this is definitely one of them, in order to provide the right products and services to their customers. This can be expensive for the tech companies as well as their customers, but it's a necessity. Understanding how to pivot your company isn't necessarily difficult. Managing through that pivot can be time-consuming and costly, though, and it can be a real challenge for tech companies and the companies they support to implement new technologies that support securing networks.
When it comes to the new economy, we certainly think, or you might think when you look at anything in the future, much like the Jetsons, that everything will be tech at some point. And certainly you can argue that tech is part of every business in some form. What do you see the future like here in the region based on the companies that have found their way here?
The future of tech in the Quinte region is nothing less than exciting. Technology really is everywhere we turn. One of the things I love about being part of the association is that this isn't about being in direct competition with one another as members. There's so many different playing fields to be involved in, and each company in the Quinte region offers something specific as part of their products or services that sets them apart. However, referring to challenges the tech sector is facing for the future of tech in the Quinte region, SMEs need support to continue providing the products and services they do, but also to continue moving forward in an innovative culture with the resources we have. If resources can't be expanded, that causes concern.
It's easy to see that we're going to have tech here for a long time, and as rural grows out and we grow this economy, we're going to see more tech in its involvement. And it's not always just tech. Tech can be found in new ways that we produce food, that we have in agriculture and produce that agriculture into food. We had one company in Campbellford called the Tono Farms, and they're still there, and they produce crickets because it's a form of protein, and it's a new food that's used in Toronto and across Canada and across North America. You know, there's so many opportunities here, and tech has a opportunity for involvement in all of that. And, you know, when it comes to my children who are 4 and 7 and 9, I certainly wonder what they will find for employment and for job opportunities when they get older. And certainly that's going to come down to also education. In our next segment, we're going to talk about what Loyalist College is doing in amplifying tech and working with businesses to grow this economy. We all know that education may just be the single most important piece to our rural innovation puzzle. When it comes to our education, some countries now are teaching coding to as young as kindergartners. When it comes to the ability to use a computer and to be able to access and use tech, that's something we're seeing in almost every business. And when it comes to working alongside our education, some of the most important work is being done by our college institutions, including our own Loyalist College. We're happy to have Anne-Marie Vaughn on today, and thank you very much, Anne-Marie. Can you please tell us what's Loyalist's role when it comes to rural innovation, and what is Loyalist doing with companies and with entrepreneurs in order to advance that in the Bay of Quinte region?
Loyalist College has multiple roles when it comes to rural innovation and technology. As the only post-secondary institution in the region, Loyalist College plays a critical role in cultivating and fostering innovation, entrepreneurship, and applied research across various sectors in the Bay of Quinte. Loyalist College has become a destination for applied research, which is rooted in strong relationships with community and industry partners and an eye towards driving industry evolution while providing students with exceptional work-integrated learning experiences. We're a rural campus located between 3 major cities, which gives us access to large producer markets. This has allowed us to align our programming with the changing needs of local agriculture and manufacturing sectors as they pursue renewable resourcing, from vertical farming to sustainable building supplies to circular food economies and new cosmetic formulations. Loyalist College's business-led approach to R&D empowers companies to develop solutions quickly, which have immediate market application and impact. As we emerge from the pandemic, Loyalist will be a key player in the post-COVID recovery as we drive innovation at the speed of business and help to build more resilient communities. We have the ambition and the vision to turn our local economy into a 365 economy. You might ask what that means? Well, that means that's an economy that works year-round in support of tourism, hospitality in the high season, and leveraging our applied research capabilities to drive rural innovation in the off-season. Our Applied Research Innovation Office offers small, medium-sized enterprises access to our expert faculty and staff, as well as the use of our state-of-the-art facilities, which enables them to refine their products, ensure their processes are cutting edge and resilient to change, and ultimately empowers them to compete in a highly competitive and increasingly digitized global economy. And finally, Loyalist is a trusted partner by community and industry, which makes us the perfect gateway to the location innovation ecosystem. And given that many small and medium-sized enterprises do not have the resources to pay for R&D costs up front, the college provides link to key players and resources to facilitate commercialization, innovation, and technology development.
Anne-Marie, we have some incredible companies doing some incredible things here. Can you tell us who some of those companies are and what they're doing when it comes to rural innovation and tech in Bay of Quinte?
At Loyalist College, we're working closely with a large number of local companies, and some of these companies and projects we're working on related to rural innovation and technology. They include, first, Entimo Farms, which is an intergenerational business targeting consumers who choose insect protein to show respect to and to enhance the preservation of the environment. Entimo Farms was investigating how best to determine optimal storage and a best before date for the cricket powder product. Loyalist designed and deployed a research methodology that measured parameters such as fat, protein, and moisture using supercritical carbon dioxide extraction and other advanced technologies to determine product stability and shelf life. As a result of Loyalist research work, Entimo Farms' cricket powder product has a minimum shelf life of 2 years, and this resulted in a 20% increase in revenue since 2017. The second example is Affinia Beauty, which develops and sells clean, all-natural beauty products through their online store. And recent customer feedback has consistently requested that they formulate a product to address their most pressing skin concern, which is fading skin discoloration. Affinia Beauty is formulating a product to address this concern without the use of conventional depigmenting agents. Research projects at Loyalist focused on reviewing Affinia's current formulation, proposing test methods to qualify Affinia's cream, and reviewing literature for excipient compatibility and ingredients for other formulations. The third example is Pasta Travola, which produces convenient and delicious family-friendly frozen ravioli and jar sauces made with real ingredients and available in Canadian supermarkets and specialty food shops. The company worked with Loyalist to develop products for new and existing markets, such as plant-based, with a focus on food trends and the growing post-COVID shift to health-conscious, clean-labeled ingredients. This initial project focused on completing a literature review and creating a plan for a larger product formulation and optimization project. In addition, as Loyalist builds on our destination college vision and aims to attract and retain more talent to the region, we're also partnering with other institutions beyond the Bay of Quinte. On the topic of rural innovation specifically, we recently signed an MOU with Loyalist College in Alberta to advance Canadian agriculture and establish new and enhanced work-integrated learning opportunities for students between our two institutions. This partnership will also empower our students, employees, and partners to explore potential areas of collaboration in smart agriculture, vertical farming, and aspects of urban planning around farming and food sustainability. Another partnership Loyalist recently launched, which is quite literally out of this world, is our applied research project with Royal Development Group, a Canadian company providing clients with research knowledge and portfolio strategy in the commercialization of products in space. As human space exploration increases in frequency and reaches further into the unknown, astronauts will require effective means to sequester carbon dioxide, produce oxygen, and develop plant-based products. Cannabis hemp is an ideal crop for this purpose, and it is highly productive. It is a highly productive species, creating significant amounts of oxygen and other essential nutrients.
We are certainly fortunate to have Loyalist College here in the Bay of Quinte region, and certainly very fortunate to have Dr. Anne-Marie Vaughan leading the charge at Loyalist. It's going to take a different mindset from parents and from children to understand the future economy and to understand just the role that they can play on contributing to that, either by starting a business or being part of a new business, being an entrepreneur, or just learning the tech and the information that they need to be a big part of this economy moving forward. And it's exciting to see the work being done at Loyalist and the work that's being done all over this region. You know, this is my favorite topic for a reason. The future of this region, the prosperity of this region depends on the ability for this economy to grow. It depends on companies being able to be started in this region, and it depends on those companies being able to flourish, to accelerate, and to grow. That growth depends on having the right type of employees, the education to train employees, and training programs that train employees in one skill into others. We know we also have to have a diversified economy. We have incredible agriculture here. We have an incredible manufacturing sector that is flourishing and growing all the time. And we know we have great tourism and a great service industry, great downtowns, and from wineries to brewers to golf courses to chocolate to cheese, you know, we have some great, incredible businesses. But we also need the tech, the innovation, the companies of the future. And as we see them start to proliferate and grow, we have to ensure that we continue to see them grow and see them proliferate. We want people in this region making better paychecks, we want to ensure that we have enough employment for people and that we have the employees to fill the businesses that need them to grow. And certainly as we move forward as a government, we'll be working to help support that ecosystem. And we need to have a government that ensures that we're always helping to ensure that businesses have the things they need to grow. It's really incredible for me to be a part of it, and I'm just happy to see what the future holds for the Bay of Quinte region. We'll continue to talk about rural innovation in future episodes. I can't wait to see what happens next. And once again, it's been my pleasure to host you on In the House. Again, we want to thank In Quinte. And if you have to call or like to talk to me anytime, please call me at 613-969-3300 or ryan.williams@parle.gc.ca. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time in the house.